That last word we don't play. DMV heat coming straight your way. No visit to the 757, we ride. Rusty Byrd got the bullpen live on.
Hey, it's the last word with Rusty Byrd. And like I always say, who cares about your first take when you can have the last word? We are talking about JMU football, y'all. That's right, the Dukes, right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the great JMU football program. I've been high on this program for a long time. And I'm blessed to have with me today. My co-host is Jason Sterling. I'm sure you all know Jason. He's been on the Kirk and Byrd show a bunch, and this is his first time on the last word. Welcome to the show, Jason. Thank you for helping me.
Yeah, thanks, Rusty. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, now I also have a guy I've known for well over 30 years. He's a friend. He's up here in Northern Virginia, and we attend the same church where he's a pastor. My dog, this is unfortunately a Hampton Crabber, but John Mitchell. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you for having me, Rusty.
Yep, got another Crabber, John Stein. Got a chance to talk to him today. This is a Bruin and a Crabber, and we actually got along. So welcome to the show, John.
Thank you, Rusty.
And then I'm blessed to have Marvin Brown. He's a little younger than the rest of us, but he played some great times at JMU. So welcome to the show, Marvin.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, yeah. You can subscribe to this show by going to the Kirk and Byrd Network and looking at the last word. And if you go ahead and hit subscribe, that helps us out a lot. I like when we get thumbs up. I even like when you tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, I got a lot of people that say, and that I always pick against like the local teams like Hampton and all, but I always pick Bethel, and I sometimes with Phoebus. But anyway, go ahead on. Try to support what we're doing here. We'll start with you, John Mitchell. Tell us, when your time at JMU, what years were you there? What when you played football, what position, and what are you doing now?
Again, my name is John Mitchell. I'm a 1989 graduate of Hampton High, where I played football for the legendary Mike Smith. I came to James Madison University in the fall of 1989. I graduated in the spring of 1993. While I was there, I had the pleasure of playing football at James Madison University, pledged Kappa Alpha Psi there. I was actually the first African-American male to be nominated for Mr. Madison while I was there, so I had a wonderful and a full college experience. I graduated with public administration and economics, and I'm currently a healthcare administrator working in the Northern Virginia area. And as Rusty said, I've also gone to divinity school, and I am a pastor of a church in Lorton, Virginia, Shiloh Baptist Lorton.
All right. Thank you. Marvin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your JMU time?
Great. Thank you. So Marvin Brown, I played at JMU from 2003 to 2007. From Chesapeake, Virginia. Originally grew up in South Jersey, but went to high school at Hickory High School, and actually played high school ball for before former Duke Joe Habit, who was my head coach in high school. He played tight end during the 80s. I was recruited as a linebacker, played defensive end, then moved to tight end and fullback. So played a multitude of positions. Ended up being a 3-year starter at JMU. Last year, as part of the 2004 championship team, got inducted into the JMU Athletic Hall of Fame. Got my undergrad in sociology, and then I got my master's in administration, all at JMU. Met my wife there as well. And, currently I work in healthcare strategy, supporting some of the insurance companies. That's my day job. And then I also I coach high school football. And then over the last year, recently became a owner of a D1 training facility that I do in Chesapeake, opening a second one here.
And promote it.
Oh, no, absolutely. So D1 Training East Chesapeake has been open since July. It's a sports-based training facility that's geared to athletes. We call athletes anybody with a goal. So whether you're 7 or 77, if you want to get better, you want to improve, all our classes are led by high-end strength coaches. And so it's a great place. It's a great company that to be a part of and to lead. And so we do have one in the Greenbrier area of Chesapeake, and then we're open in a second location in the Western Branch area of Chesapeake March of next year. So excited about that, and excited just about continuing to talk about the Dukes.
All right, y'all check him out and bring your last word coupon for 10% off. Tell him
There you go.
you heard
There you
about it on this show.
There you go.
Yeah. John Stein, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm also a former Hampton Crabber, played for Mike Smith. Back in the 90s, I graduated in 92. I was 92 to 97 at JMU. I was I was recruited as a wide receiver. I was all-state wide receiver and played some corner in high school too. And then I switched over to defense. I didn't take it personally either. But when receivers switch into defense, sometimes take it personally. But I played. I got redshirted my first year, and then I played. Was a 4-year starter at corner and free safety and returned some punts while I was at JMU. So, we went through a coaching change, which was interesting. But I had a phenomenal experience at JMU. Some of my best friends that I was texting. We were texting guys that I played with 30 years ago, like it was like we're still there. But I graduated from the School of Business with a degree in quantitative finance, and I've worked in the investment business since I left, mostly in New York City, but I currently live in South Florida, and I'm the chief marketing officer for an investment firm down here.
Great, thanks. And my co-host Jason Sterling. Jason is I'll let him explain, but he's been the voice of Stonebridge football here in Northern Virginia, but he's also a great athlete and he knows his sport. So Jason, tell folks about your time at JMU and what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks, Rusty. So I was at JMU from 1991 through 1995. Did not play football there, and as I was joking, couldn't cover guys like John or stop guys like John, so that's why they didn't let me on the team. But I've stayed very connected to the Virginia sports scene, particularly football, as you know, Rusty, with high school football all around, and certainly the colleges here. And it's great to see what the Dukes are doing now, and really that path has been trailblazed by guys like John, Marvin, and John. And hopefully we'll get into that and some of the legacy of what those guys helped build of what you see of JMU today. So currently I'm working for a very large Fortune 500 company. I run a region sales team here in the Mid-Atlantic. And we provide technology products and services to both the government and the hyperscale AI data center community. So been with that organization for about 30 years. So doing it a long time. But oftentimes trying to sneak away to go announce some football games when I can at the high school level and watch some of these great college teams like James Madison.
As a VCU grad, I'm surprised that you JMU graduates actually are being successful in life. Look, I guess JMU puts out some different folks. I mean, successful folks. All right, those resumes sound like you went to VCU.
All right. That's good. That's good, Rusty. You'll get a good laugh from your audience on that one, man. Trust me.
Right. Okay. Well, look. Let's go ahead and get into this. I want to first start out by talking about the fact that James Madison football has come a long way from when I was first introduced to it in the 80s. And to be a program that I think it started in 1972. So it wasn't too old by the time I started hearing about it and following them in like the early to mid 80s. Didn't realize it was that young of a program. But when you think about that, they've come a long way in a short amount of time. I remember when my brother played at Virginia Tech, I think it was his senior year, they were playing in their 100th season, And so at that same time, you're looking at a Madison program probably that wasn't even, I don't think, 20 years old, by the time he'd graduated. But you guys have grown tremendously. And you had success. You won national championships on the FCS level. And then in 2022, you all moved up to the FBS level, which is used to be the 1AA and 1A. And so now you're playing 1A football and you're playing in the Sun Belt. But seems to be like a distinction. They're called like the Power 4 and then the Group of 5. But I like to throw all that stuff out because it doesn't really mean a whole bunch to me. But I want to go back when I did an episode on this back in 2022 with a couple of former Dukes, John Perez, Tracy Harrod, and Leon Taylor. And at that point, before you actually made the move, there was some but different thoughts. Because my thought was, well, why would you move up? You're winning national championships. Your school's won national championships in other sports too. Women's field hockey, you've had great success in just a lot of programs. Tell me, what were your thoughts when they first decided to make that move? Were you for it? Were you against it? And then where do you feel? What do you feel now? We'll start with you, Marvin.
Yeah, I mean, it was
And
kind
you
of
won a national championship.
yeah.
So
It was kind of bitter. But I do think it was like the next logical step at that point. Like I mean, we were just basically it had gotten into a point. It was let's just go play North Dakota State in Frisco every year, and that was fun, and all that. And but I also felt like the times were a little bit changing, and I think I say this. I think it's no. I think that the move to move up at that time, as much as it was football related, we were coming off of a women's softball World Series run, and then shortly thereafter, a couple years last year, the basketball team, like I think all the teams had started to level up at JMU to a point, and then a part of it was that we had kind of lost regional rivalries. Like ODU had made the move, App State had made the move, Marshall had made the move. And what I love about the Sun Belt now is like we're getting those games back. Like the last game of my career was at App State in the playoffs, and it was kind of really sweet, like a good feeling when we ran it up on them, to see that, saying to kind of get that get back and all those different things. And so, we also had some reality set in, like we may have seen our last national championship for a while, like in football. And so, I think that part was kind of bittersweet, and we would enjoy the bowl games. But I do think in this current like juncture, like if there was another move, I wouldn't be surprised if there's another move on the horizon for JMU. And I know I don't want to go too far into that, but I think we're still trending up. Like I think we can be a Power Four team in the next 10 to 15 years, if not sooner. And I think those things, like I think the infrastructure and all those things are there. So it was bittersweet, but I mean I appreciate it, because now when they play ODU every other year here, it's a family reunion and we get to beat them up a little bit. So I've thoroughly enjoyed those games, and so I like having some of those regional rivalries back that we kind of lost in all that transition.
yeah, cool. I feel you on that. I feel you on that. Mitchell.
I think since I'm the old head of the group, as you can see by my gray hair, I can actually take you back to the very first JMU football player. I was talking to Reverend Osbury one day and found out his brother was
Yeah,
actually the person who kicked the ball off for the very first JMU football game. And I said, that makes your brother the very first JMU football player. And so
yeah.
we were going to do a program to honor a lot of the JMU first, and we had done that before with the Black Alumni Association. And so we're still in talks about doing that for the JMU athletic department. But with that being said, I can take it back to when I got recruited back in 1989. Ronald Carrier was the president of James Madison University at the time, and we called him Uncle Ron. He was very gregarious. He walked the campus. You could sit and talk with him. And I had transitioned from football to doing other things because I knew my future didn't lie in football, and I was with the University Planning and Development Board. And he and I were referencing the conversation I had when I got recruited, and I'd actually met him. And I remember him saying that he wanted more players from Tidewater, that he was actively trying to get them to recruit the 757 because he knew that the Big Ten, Penn State, UVA Tech had a lock. And he
Yep.
was worried about if ODU ever developed a football program, that they might be able to stop players from coming out of Tidewater up to JMU. And he knew he needed that to be a D1 program. And I kind of questioned, well, why do you want to go D1? And his answer literally to me was, we're fundraising for the university, not just from alumni, but from the state. And he said, when I go to alumni or I go to the state legislature, I've got the president of UVA saying, we're getting ready to play UNC. I've got the president from Virginia Tech sitting in the same room with me talking about handing out tickets to the Miami game. And I'm talking about handing out tickets to the University of Richmond.
Right.
And he said it's a marketing move as well. That when you take that step up to D1A, the university as an institution is looked at differently. Now, we know certain schools didn't make that jump. Like the University of Chicago technically was back in the Big Ten, back in the early 1900s.
Right, right.
Many of those schools knew and saw the trajectory of college sports and didn't want to do that. And so
William and Mary used to have played some of the national powers back in the day.
Yeah. And so you have to make a decision as an institution that if that's the move you're going to make to help you build your brand, then there come investments with that. And those investments require you playing at a certain level, because anytime you have a successful football program, it increases recruiting, it increases donations, it increases alumni support. Let's all just speak the truth right now. Half the buildings at Virginia Tech have been built because of Michael Vick.
Yep.
And so for me, when we made the move, I actually at first thought we were behind. And I say that, Rusty, and you're going to recognize these names, and you too, Jason, George Welsh and Chip West.
Yeah.
When they started building a program at ODU, and they got it up to the level that they did as fast as they did, and then went Division I before we did, I honestly thought JMU football might be over. I was like, wow, we're never going to catch up. Because if you think about it, the state of Virginia, the whole DMV area is heavily recruited. And then you add on top of that now, at that time, you had a UVA under George Welsh who had competed for the national title but lost to Georgia Tech. You had a Virginia Tech program on the rise. JMU and University of Richmond and William and Mary had always been competitive at the D1 AA level. Not with so much talent to go around. And I thought that when ODU made that step that JMU was going to take a step back. But in actuality, I think JMU, actually of all the programs, did it the right way. Many of those schools that were with us that we talked about that made the jump when JMU was one time in the, what was it? We were the CAA, then we were the Atlantic 10, then we went to the Southern Conference. But I don't think that App State, ECU, Marshall, or any of those other programs that jumped have had the sustained success that JMU has had with that D1A jump. So I've got to give it to the athletic program at JMU. Even though it took us longer, I think we built ourselves for sustained success.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it just became about money. I think that the JMU spent more money on its athletic department, like multiples than the other FCS schools at the time. And I think we might even spend the most money in the Sun Belt now, right? So I think it's 50, 60 million bucks a year. Maybe it's more now, but it's a lot of money that JMU was spending. So I think that the school was always, has always had its eye on, I think from Ron Carrier, as John said, like he's kind of the visionary. I mean, JMU used to be a women's college, and then he's the one that started the football program in the 70s. And I think he'd be pretty proud of what's going on right now. So I just think that, when you're spending that kind of money and you look at, William and Mary and Richmond and some of the schools that we liked, and I think if you played in that era, you liked those old rivalries. Like we hated playing Richmond. We love to hate Richmond, and William and Mary. And I think they feel the same way. So it was kind of a bummer to lose some of those things, some of those rivalries. But I just think it was untenable. And I think that JMU had been invited to other conferences, maybe Conference USA, and probably the Sun Belt before it reconstituted. Because I think once Marshall and some of the other schools, got into what was now the Sun Belt East, it kind of became a bus league where, to Marvin's point, some of those older rivalries like App State, which we, They were kind of a playoff rivalry for us, and Marshall, kind of the same thing. Those got reconstituted, and you can play them every year now. And I think that's what made the move, tenable for us. And JMU at the time, having hosted game day and kind of on the rise, and some of the FCS success was appealing, but not just because of that, because of the whole school's athletic program, because all those teams could compete: women's lacrosse, field hockey, softball and volleyball, and all these great sports that JMU has built a real winning culture. And I think the MVP for JMU over the past 20, 25 years is Jeff Bourne, who was the athletic director who retired last year, who hired Kurt Signetti and who hired Bob Chesney, and we're all optimistic about Billy Napier, and we'll get to some of that, I'm sure. But I think it just became that we just spent so much more money and we're committed to sports in a very different way than Richmond and William and Mary were. Not better or worse, just different, and it had to happen. I don't think it was. I think that ship sailed a little while ago.
Yeah, and Jason, I'll get your opinion, but you guys are right. One of the things I noticed is that it looks like Richmond and William and Mary, two really great programs. Mike London's former Bruin, been the head coach at both. He won a national championship at Richmond, and then he's done very well at William and Mary. But those programs, and I don't know the real history behind why they're doing it, other than maybe just college football has changed. They've actually leaving the CAA, one of the most competitive 1AA programs, conferences, and they're both transitioning to the Patriot, where there isn't the same, I won't say focus on football and sports, but we're at Georgetown now, and the Bucknell's not good, but the CAA to me is, over the last 20 some years, extremely strong in town. And that was part of my argument for staying there, because you had national champions in in Richmond, Delaware, Villanova. You had strong programs, but I will say that not that I was wrong, but I think it was the right move at the time he did to move up. Jason.
Yeah, I think it was definitely the right time to look at it, Rusty. You look back on it, maybe it was an unknown at the time to make that move into the FBS. But college football today is moving so fast. There are so many changes. If you're left without a chair in that musical chair game, you're in a world of hurt. College football favors those that are aggressive and that are putting money into their programs. And I think JMU is on the come up when you look at those things, even more so than, some of their neighboring Power 4 schools that are around. If you just look at, Madison has hosted 3 college game days since 2015. 3. That is 3 more than the combination of West Virginia, UVA, Virginia Tech, and Maryland since 2015. Now, Tech's had 2 other ones that they've been to since 15. They had a lot that he hosted, obviously during the Vic era and things like that, and certainly when Frank Beeman was in his heyday. But they've hosted 3 more than those 4 schools combined since 2015. Things like that get you on the map, and it's time where the money that's coming into this, the NIL, the transfer portal, if you're not aggressive in that arena today, you're going to be left behind. So making that move was the first step, I think, to get them into that path of aggression. And now, as Marvin said, and who knows when, but at some point, I think you're going to see additional conference realignment and the opportunity to potentially get into a bigger conference one day. JMU is going to be an attractive target when it comes to that.
I could see you all in the Big 12, without a doubt. I could see you all in the Big 12.
I was talking to my buddy about this the other day, and I'm a huge college football guy. Like, I watch NFL, but like college football, that's always going to be kind of my heart. JMU has I feel like JMU has a SEC mentality. And what I mean by that is that, the slogan for SEC is it just means more. Like, I think from an infrastructure, from a resources, like to your point, Jason, I would put up our support and our infrastructure around JMU against just about the entire ACC, sans maybe a Clemson, a Miami, and some of those other schools. I think the infrastructure is there. It's important for JMU to be successful in sports. And I think everything that they do supports that. And like everything that they've done, from their hiring, from like, I know that from their NIL, they're the highest in the Sun Belt, and I don't even think it's particularly close. From their facility, like everything top to like it's important to them. And so I think it's going to continue to be important enough that I think like, because you're going to have some of those, and I look at like a Wake Forest who's kind of like, I don't know if they're going to bow out of the ACC, but like they've been consistent, like they're not going to play that game, and like so it's like I think you're going to see some of those kind of like in that next phase of realignment, some of those schools kind of say, hey, like we're not going to play big boy football, and I think us playing Oregon is kind of a great proponent of that. But the teams that want to play big boy football are going to step up, and I think JMU is going to be one of those people when the time comes.
Yeah, I have said on this show a number of times, and I've had Dwight Vick, former Hampton High Crabber and Virginia Tech alum, had him on the show a lot, and I've told him, and he agrees. Like I said, JMU has been the best football program in the state of Virginia at least the last 5 years, maybe more. And so I don't even think it's close.
Rusty, can I give you a couple numbers here?
Yeah.
That's
why I got you on the show, because just talk.
A lot of people think about national comparisons and things, and I don't want to say JMU's in the class with these programs, because certainly the conferences that they're in mean a lot. But just let me give you a couple things to chew on here. Since 2015, they have 9 more wins than the Notre Dame program. They have 14 more wins than the opponent they're playing this coming Saturday, Oregon, since 2015. They have 17 more wins than Michigan, 20 more wins than LSU, and 33 more wins than USC in a 10-year window.
Wow.
I get it. You can talk about opponents, you can talk about schedule strength, you can talk about the conferences they're in, but the product on the field has routinely won, really since a lot of these guys started playing, and it's gotten almost better every year. So I just, to me, that's an attraction that will draw folks to JMU, not JMU having to go search out places to go.
Yeah.
And Jason, I would just add to that. If you look at the success of the, coaches at JMU, right? We've had some great ones, we've had some okay ones, but what's happened consistently for 10 or even 20 years or more is that JMU has won. And, I think Cignetti and Chesney, we can talk about, especially, I think Chesney's done, he turned an entire roster over in 2 years and is now in the college football playoff. Like, he earned his job at UCLA. And if we're losing our coaches, we're winning. I think that's the way we have to think about it. But what's different is that we've had a lot of coaches, and I hope we continue to lose coaches, because it means we're winning. But it means that the program, you can recruit there, right? You can get people there. You have support there. Yeah, we can argue, we can build up our stadium and build our facilities, and we need to do some of those things. But there's something to the institution, the organization, the infrastructure that allows coaches to come in and be successful, even if they lose their entire roster. And I think in this day and age, this is what Cignetti proved, that, he took 13 of our all-conference guys to Indiana. We're going to claim half their national championship if they win.
Absolutely. It happened 5 years ago. That's just 2 seasons.
Right. And he turned over a fledgling Indiana program. Bob Chesney did the same thing at JMU. They're hoping he does the same thing at UCLA. But if you're not a coach that can manage your roster like that, you can't do that. But it's available to you at JMU. And I think that the history of coaches, with varying degrees of success, but they all, have won consistently. I think it means that the place is set up for success, not just in football, but across sports. And that mindset has been built over, 25, 30 years, not just 5 years. So, and we're seeing the fruits of that now.
Yeah. I just want to say, because people are talking about whether JMU belongs in the playoff and whether the group of 5 belong in the playoffs. Just think about this. This Indiana team that beat Ohio State, 22 of the starters came from JMU. So if you want us, and that's not all. If you think about what's left here at JMU and what's come into JMU, there's a competitive program here.
Absolutely.
And it's not just competitive, I think, for the Sun Belt Conference we're in. I think it translates. And I think I'm honestly looking for a good showing this weekend. And a lot of it is Signetti and his coaching. But we all know you can be the best coach in the world, but if you don't have some dogs,
Yeah.
you're not winning that game.
So
they took
John, you're taking us exactly where I want to go. You guys sound like you're all okay. You understand Kirk and Signetti and Chesney leaving. Real quick before we move on, any thoughts on Billy Napier becoming the next coach?
I'll say what surprised me. So, on the people that know me really well, I wear kind of two hats when it comes to college football, and so my I bleed purple, but I grew up a Hurricane fan, and so watching Billy Napier at Florida, my biggest concerns, number one, what got him canned in Florida was he didn't want to give up play calling. And so like that was like to me, like if he came here, when I thought he took this move was like so he could still resume play calling. So that kind of scared me a little bit. It sounds like, I think in the interview he said he's not going to call plays. So
that's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of excited about it. The other thing about him is that if you look at Florida's roster and you look at those guys go on the field, he attracts talent. And I think if he's able to put those different things in place around him and be successful, I think it's going to put us in a great light. But the one thing that I kind of drew pause on, and I think both Johns will probably agree, it kind of went away from the Bourne blueprint. That was the one thing. And I know Roan has done a great job. I've had a chance to talk with him once or twice. I think he's a great athletic director, and I think he wants this program but it went away from the JMU blueprint, in that we were getting, a defensive coordinator from defensive back coach from Georgia and Mickey Matthews, and then we went to a defensive coordinator in Everett Withers, and then we went to a division, a Citadel coach, or I forgot where Houston was at before. Like we had these guys, we had all these up and comers, and then when Signetti, you had the pissed off old man that was looking for a way back. You know what I'm saying? Like and so it was always that next thing, and then because when we got Chesney, it was like, oh, holy cross, like why him? And then I think if you sit in a room for him and within 30 seconds, you're like, oh, I get it. Yeah, I can see it. So like that was the one thing that kind of surprised me, but it also kind of reassured me like we're now in a different space, where like these big coaches, they want to come here now. Like it's not like we having to go find people anymore. Like Napier is looking at this job as like, man, I can come here, dominate, and probably be back in the SEC or the Big Ten in 3 to 4 years at max. And so I think that's where it was but it was a shift. So I was kind of up and down about it. But I'm hoping I like him more as a JMU coach than I did as the floor.
Right.
Well, I'd just say, Marvin, I agree with everything you said. The other pros I would say are, look, I went to the Florida-Texas game this year, and where Florida beat Texas at home, and they have some dogs, and I don't know if any of those Gators will transfer. I don't know if we have the money to pay them, but maybe there's a few guys he can bring. I'm sure not Lagway. I'm sure we can't pay Lagway, but they've got
Fletcher Westfall is there.
They got they've got some dogs, and so, and I think the other good thing is that they did it fast, and that he's there, and the transfer of power seems orderly and good, and and so I'm sure Chesney's going to take some guys, probably Sire West, and he might even take Barnett and some other guys. Like we're going to lose some guys.
Oh, yeah.
But having Napier there, evaluating practices in real time, and it just seems like even Signetti was like, I'll see you guys later. And Chesney is leaving the right way. It seems like Summerall's leaving Tulane the right way. It just seems like maybe the world has kind of figured out how to do some of these coaching transitions a little bit better. So I think the fact that he's there, they're stable. I think that's a great thing. And I think it's not often you get fired and end up at a school that's in the college football playoff, right? So for
Yeah.
Napier,
Right.
while he's not going to earn what he did at Florida, it's as good of like rehab. There's no better job for him or a coach from his position. To your point, Marvin, like if he and he's going to win 8 games without trying if he can get the right talent, and maybe 9 games, and if he does better than that, then he'll be in conversations and just say, oh, Florida was the outlier, that's not about who Billy Napier is, and obviously we all hope that's what happens.
Well,
I'll add 2 things. One is a quick story is that we held our Black Alumni Weekend the same weekend as the spring game. And we actually partner with the football alumni, and for the incoming students, just incoming students, and anybody else who wants to, we have a open tailgate. And it so happened that actually a fraternity brother, because the Kappas kind of helped support that, a guy who was a Kappa came up, and his son was being recruited by the University of Florida. And he actually said after coming to the tailgate and coming to JMU that weekend and going to the spring game that it was between Florida and JMU.
wow.
And he said he wished his son would pick JMU, but he thought his son was going to pick Florida. So I'm wondering if that guy might even be able to transfer back. So he was being recruited out of Maryland. So when Napier's name was mentioned, I thought 2 things. One, like Marvin said, it wasn't our tradition, but I think we're in a different place. For us to get a coach with the name recognition of Napier, who's been at Alabama, who had tremendous success in the Sun Belt, who then went to Florida and could recruit at Florida, and now you see he has a presence that he could even pull from the DMV down to Florida. And now he's coming back to the area. I think that helps us out because we've got to remember, and let's just be honestly, I'm a JMU Duke through and through, but that dude down at Virginia Tech can recruit the DMV.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Bottom line is he can lock this area down. And if he's locking it down and you've got a resurgent UVA, JMU has to start really recruiting on a mid-Atlantic / national level, and we're really going to have to use the portal as much as we have been the past couple of years.
Well, and the
John,
last thing I'll say, sorry, Jason, is that the recruiting class with this coaching transition really remained intact, which is really important in this change. And there's a running back that goes to our high school down here. He went there last year. He transferred to another school, but his name's Phoenix. He signed and he's kind of like a Scattaboo type of running back. And they kept all those guys, and I just look at that and say, I don't know if that's because Napier's to Florida or whatever, or if everybody, this class was just like, I'm gonna go to the place because the place is successful and they've got a coach and a staff. So I think that speaks to the brand that JMU has built.
Yeah.
And it's got to be some credit to Coach Napier, of course, but it didn't seem like they lost many or any recruits, high school recruits. And I think that's a huge deal because usually when the coach leaves, you're like, I'm going to go follow the coach or whatever. So I think JMU has built a brand among high school students, even in South Florida, which, would have never thought that, we would have, tentacles down here. And I think Napier being down here for 4 or 5 years and really understanding Florida just opens up another avenue for us. Because I agree, Franklin is who was at JMU for a year or so, is gonna know how to recruit Virginia.
D'Angelo Pons from right down there in Chaminade.
That's right.
Indiana's best corner, JMU guy. So, I'm with you.
John,
Yeah.
it's a great point though around with what Virginia Tech's got now. Tony Elliott, what he's done at Virginia, I think JMU has to continue to try and expand their presence. I mean, that it is a destination school for a lot of folks. And again, I know we think football is everything around this, but one of you guys mentioned it. A lot of their other sports have been extremely competitive, if not almost national championship style sports at times. That helps as well. Mm-hmm. They're not just a one-sided, hey, it's football only, everything else stinks. None of the girls' programs are any good. That's not true at all. And that
the
really,
girls are the best. The girls are the
really
best
helps
teams,
a lot.
Like no
that really
doubt
helps a lot. Yeah. Look, Napier had a great run in Louisiana, as you guys know, and you talked about, and then maybe just couldn't quite put it all together. And I think Florida probably had the toughest schedule 2 out of the last 3 years.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
you look at
absolutely, for
you look
sure.
at that schedule. I mean, I'm not sure who would get through that. But one of the things that these coaches have been able to do, really, since Mike Houston. I mean, you really didn't want to be the guy that followed him, but Cignetti came along and look what he did. You didn't want to be the guy that follows Cignetti. Look what Chesney's done, right? You probably don't want to be the guy that follows Chesney, but hey, who knows what Napier can do here? I mean, all of these. Cignetti took 7 assistants to Indiana, 7, not just all those players, the plethora of players that we talked about, but 7 assistants. So Chesney had to turn over his entire coaching staff. Nobody stuck around. And he was able to, like you said, John, he was able to build that thing up in 2 years.
That's also, again, that goes to the infrastructure of the university.
That's right.
Its goals and its leadership in the athletic department and any other programs, athletic programs. Yeah,
But
no doubt.
look at that with the transition that kind of Marvin mentioned, that we left the old blueprint, and maybe it's a testament to where we are now. For where we are now, you need somebody who has the experience of having been at a school like Florida to understand what a D1 powerhouse traditional program looks like, as far as meetings, as far as recruiting, as far as relationship with the athletic department, the community, boosters, advertisement, NIL, and everything else that Napier dealt with at Florida on that level in the SEC. And
Yeah,
he's bringing that experience to JMU.
yeah,
I think that's what's going to be invaluable right now, not just the X and O's of the coaching, but the understanding of how to run a top tier, top flight D1A program. And he was in a state where he was competing with recruiting with Florida State, Miami, and let's not forget UCF and
oh yeah,
USF aren't any jokes in recruiting
no,
in recruiting
no.
either. And Georgia's right up the
In
street.
Georgia, yeah,
Alabama's down the street and Mississippi's
Mm-hmm.
coming in. So, he was recruiting in a state and in a place that a lot of people come to. So I'm happy with what I think will be the management and the infrastructure of the football program. I think it's who we needed at this time to do what needs to be done, especially if, and I know others have talked about it as well, the possibility of JMU going to a Power Five conference in a few years, or maybe getting that invitation, you know, that's going to be important.
yeah. I know. I know. As a VCU alum, we were in the old Sun Belt, then the CAA. But after our Final Four run and continued success, we took another step to the Atlantic 10, which had been an extremely strong
Hmm.
basketball conference. And so those things, like you're in this tournament. This is only the second year they've had a 12-team playoffs, and you're right there. You're one of those programs. The last thing I'll say about the coaching situation is regarding Billy Napier. I hope he learns from Hugh Freeze. Take a note from Hugh Freeze. He had something special there at Liberty and thought, "Oh, I'll leave and go back to the SEC and I'll try to do something." And now look. I bet he probably wishes he had continued with that Liberty program, because that strong program, and they have facilities and they have financial backing, and so all of these things. When you look at even Old Dominion, the jump they took this year, you know, so I'm very proud of where, and especially looking forward to college football in the state of Virginia, and I'm glad to have you all on, because right now this is the best program in the state. All right, let's move on now to specifically this special season. Now, I won't say this is the greatest season in JMU football because you won national championships, but it is special. Let's see, if you go out there and just like, I was at your school on Saturday covering high school football, and I've seen your facilities, and I'm in the press box like, oh, this is as good as UVA's and ODU's. Like, this was nice, like, so, but let's see where the program can go. And so let's go to this season right here specifically. You're 12-1. I say again, the Sun Belt is as good as the ACC. People just that don't understand, don't get it. I've seen so much success over the years with App State, Marshall, Old Dominion this year, but you've also had Coastal Carolina have really good seasons. And if Coastal Carolina, this has been a few years ago, Coastal Carolina could have been in this playoffs. But what are your thoughts on this year? And then the way you played in that Sun Belt championship game against Troy was amazing, and you also beat Washington State. But I'll start with you, Jason. What are your thoughts on this team this year and this season?
It's an incredible season, Rusty, and I think because JMU's won so much, we almost, I don't want to say take it for granted, but to some degree walk in here thinking there's going to be 10, 11, 12 wins every season. And that's not guaranteed. You start with 0 wins at the beginning of the season, as we all know. So you have to go out each and every week and execute. Their lone loss was to Louisville. They were up by a point at halftime. The game was tied heading into the fourth quarter. Louisville, I think, had a defensive touchdown and then had a breakaway, either a long run or pass. I can't remember, to win by 2 touchdowns. But they were just working Barnett back into the rotation. So they were rotating. I think Chesney was rotating between Sluka and Barnett during that game, son. So to me, and again, losing in Louisville was playing good football at the time. But
they were playing great.
Yeah, if you look at what JMU's done this season, I mean, I think maybe you guys have the numbers. I think they had 16 all Sun Belt Conference players, first, second, or third team. That was by far the most. They had the player of the year in Barnett, the overall player of the year, the defensive player of the year in Hendricks, and the coach of the year, obviously, in Bob Chesney. So not to mention all the other guys that come in there. They really don't have a weakness. Their running game is strong. They've got 3 or 4 backs to give the ball to. Their defensive line is strong. They've got, so here they've got a freshman that, looks like he could be a Heisman type candidate from a defensive position in a few years. He's that good. Secondary is phenomenal. Their offensive line, they had 4 all-conference offensive linemen. I guess if you're going to find one area, maybe it's their wide receiver core that may not always stack up against other teams, and that's an area that, they're going to have to try and just make sure when they play Oregon that they can, get some things going on the outside. But I'm nitpicking at this point. I mean, they're really balanced. They're top 10 nationally in scoring defense and scoring offense. I think Indiana, Ohio State might be the only other teams in that category. So really they're a well-balanced team. We know they're well coached. I think it was a great season. They're going to have to work it out for us against Oregon. I know we'll talk about that in a little bit, but they're going to up against some phenomenal athletes out there in Eugene. So,
Mitchell, your thoughts on the season?
I think it's historic. I think it's an amazing season. I think for us to, in 3 years, come from begging to have them have an exemption so we can go to a bowl, to going to a bowl, to now being in the college playoffs. I mean, who can say that?
Yeah, nobody.
In the 3-year period of just being Division 1A, or as we used to call it, Division 1A, I guess it's the bowl conference series or whatever they call Division 1A.
Right, I don't know.
I'm still old school on what I call it, so I just think it's magical. I think this is, to me, I'm as excited this year as I was in the years that we won the national title. So I'm very proud of the school. I'm very proud of where they are. I'm just looking forward to it, and I'm of the opinion that NIL has really balanced the field across the country. And let's just be honest. Maybe it's not a word I can use here, but the SEC is an inbred conference. You see the name on the jersey, and then you apply a number to a school, and then because that school loses by a touchdown to Alabama, you think that school's a top 5 school too. No, that's not it. The game is played on the field, and not enough of that is attributed to this level of competition. And I think that really, and I know we might get to it later, it needs to be a standard playoff, just like they have the D1 AA level, because this system, we saw this year that the system failed in some respects because they're giving too much recognition to the ghost of the past and not to the play that's on the field. And when you look at JMU's metrics, when you look at the players, when you look at the schedule, you look at what they've done, they earned their way to the playoff, and I make no apologies about it. I know Paul Feinberg said we don't belong there. I know that the former coach from Alabama said that we don't belong there. Look, that's because they're part of the system that benefits those institutions.
Yep.
Let's let it be a level playing field. So I'm happy to see Tulane and James Madison in there, and I think JMU can actually have a good run.
Yeah, I agree. Stein.
Yeah, listen, I think I mean, look, I went to the Boca Raton Bowl last year and it was fun, but it's not like this. And I don't know where Jamie would be had they been left out of the conference, because the Sun Belt doesn't have great bowl ties like some of the historic conferences do. But I think it's great. I think if the ACC had Miami play UVA, we're not JMU's not in the playoff because that's probably the way they intended. But I'm I'll die on this hill. I think JMU is favored against either UVA or Duke if they lined up today.
Oh yeah.
Not Miami, but I think everyone's like, oh, if UVA had won, no one would have had a problem with that. But I think JMU is favored against UVA on a neutral field.
Yeah.
And I think the world doesn't understand that. And look, we may not win Saturday, but I think given the way that team is constituted, I think our defense gives us a chance. I think if they're not on the field the whole game, kind of like if the offense sputters a bit like Troy, those guys out there they're better than Troy by a lot, and they've got speed in all kinds of places. But I think no matter what, there's only upside for JMU. The world doesn't expect them to win. The world expects them to get their doors blown off. So literally anything better than that is a win for JMU, and the exposure for the school. Even UCLA kind of handling this the way they did, I think it's good for them. It's good for us. I just think it's a great advertisement for the school, and is the next logical step in the ascension of that program, and that's going to be Billy Napier's job to and the next staff to keep that going, which will be a hard act to follow. But we thought when Signetti left, everybody, woe was me, took 95% of our offense, and look what happened. So
Yeah.
it's there.
Marvin, you've got a ring. You've got a ring now. But what are your thoughts on this season?
So,
Okay, and let me just preface this by saying, because you brought up something, Stein, is this is a special season, but the reality will normally be that you are going to the whatever bowl and that bowl, and that's the actually going to be more times than this, and that's just the reality of it.
Absolutely.
So do you go to the whatever the Pinstripe Bowl, or the Top Bowl is pretty cool, but some of these other bowls, and on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock play a game. Like, is that what you signed up for? I know you signed up for this, but that's the reality of more likely happening more often. But go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so the season, and one of the things that me and like a lot of my teammates that came through during like that era, you'll hear us constantly say the standard is the standard. Um, I expect JMU to go 12, 11-1 every year. Like, and I like, and I know people might think I'm crazy. Like, I expected JMU to beat Louisville. And I think if we have a healthy Barnett, we beat Louisville, even though Louisville has a wide receiver that's going to go in the first round.
Yep.
They have some talent. They have a running back that's one of the top running backs in the country when he's healthy. That's the standard. That's what we expect. And so it's been a great season. But I also I say this in saying that there's been times where I feel like we've left things on the table, and like I think towards the end of the year, that's when they kind of realized they had to kind of choke people out to make those statement wins. Even though you're not supposed to count points in the playoff, you saw what they did to Coastal, you saw what they did to some of the teams later in the season, so I do think it's been a great season. I'm making the trek out to Oregon just because one, I've never been to Oregon, and I wanted to be in Alton Stadium, and I wanted to be at the game and just experience it. But it's been a great season. But I think one of the things that kind of, and I know the coaches and the players that came before me can probably echo this as well. Like, I know Mickey kind of when we were there with Mickey Matthews, every game we stepped on the field, we expected to win. And whether that was going to play at UNC, that was going to, we expected to win. And it wasn't that, and it was, we were playing West Virginia the championship year, and they were number 3 in the country. They had Chris Henry at wide receiver, Pac-Man Jones, Rasheed Marshall, KJ Harris just ran for 340 yards against Oklahoma the week before. And we're losing at halftime, and Coach Matthews is screaming at us like, "What are y'all doing?" And we were down 24-3, and we ended up getting beat a little worse than that. But it kind of created that expectation, and I think that trickled throughout the generations. Like, I don't think these kids. Yes, we're Oregon's NIL. I mean, Oregon's defensive coordinator makes more than the entire JMU roster and NIL money in the coaching staff combined. That I saw that this morning. But I promise you, they're going with there with the expectation that we're going to go out there and compete, and we're gonna do what we can, because that to me is this JMU standard, and so that's what I'm most excited to see is like how does that standard go up against the big NIL, and the reason I think it's going to be okay is because like Mitchell said, we just saw last Saturday night or 2 Saturdays and nights ago the JMU standard go beat Ohio State. And we
Yep.
saw and we saw it. We saw what happens when you have guys that are bought into a system and believe in what they're doing. And so, do I think we're going to beat Oregon? I don't know, but
So
do I think
let's go there right now. That was going to be the next thing. Everybody give their prediction for this game. And since you're on it, Marvin, go ahead.
I think honest prediction, my heart tells me we're going to win, but honest prediction, I think it's going to follow a similar track of the Louisville game, where we're in it probably into the third. And then, they have one of their, 4'2", 40 wide receivers is going to catch a ball and take it 80, and kind of break our backs. I do worry. I think the thing that I worry about the most with us is we're going to need an explosive play in the pass game, I think, to stay in it for the long haul. I don't know if we can count on that against Oregon. I think we're going to get an explosive run game in the run game with Wayne Knight, I think Wayne Knight is going to get an explosive run. But I know, like, to win in these games, you're going to need an explosive play through the air, and that's where I'm a little bit concerned. So I say it's a close game till third, early fourth quarter, and I think maybe they might pile it on at the end just because of the depth and everything that they have on their side. So, but
Okay.
and I would be satisfied with that because I knew that would show we belonged, and I think that would shut up all these media pundits across the country saying that JMU shouldn't have no chance in there. So,
Okay. Mitchell,
I'm gonna say
who do you think will win?
I'm going with the Dukes.
Okay.
The only thing I'm worried about, I think our defense is going to show better than what people expect against that Oregon offense. I think our offense is going to. I believe that Oregon is light in the pants, and I think our offensive line and our running game may keep the Oregon offense off the field. But I do worry about depth and Oregon's big playability, especially against our defensive backfield. That's where my concern lies. Other than that, I'm going to be a homer. I'm going for the Dukes, and I'm going for the Dukes to do what the television networks have set up. That's why they put us in the bracket that they did, so we'd end up beating Kurt Signetti when we make it past Texas Tech. What they wanted was to see Indiana and JMU play each other, and that's what's going to happen. And then we're going to pay Signetti back for leaving us.
Right. There you go. I like that. All right. Stein.
Yeah, I think that I echo what John and Marvin said. I think our defense, I think our front seven is built to play this game. I think and I think we have depth at the D line, which is really important. Our back end is a little bit, we want to try to play man to man all night against Oregon. I think that's a recipe for giving up a lot of big plays downfield because if we can't get to that quarterback who's going to be a first round draft pick, he can slice up our secondary. So, and I think, it's going to have to be a pound the run game. I don't know if that's if as to use John's where they're light in the pants. I hope they are, because if our O-line, who I think is great, can control the line of scrimmage, then we can shorten the game. Maybe you get a big play in like the kicking game or something. And, they're just, look, a lot of stuff has to go right for JMU to win this game, I think. But it's not impossible. And, I think that if they get kind of withstand the first quarter, they're in it, and find a way to even get a lead in the first quarter, 3-0, 10-0, kind of a little surprise and kind of say we're here, then I think they got a chance. If they give up a couple touchdowns early and the avalanche starts falling, it could be tough. But so look, they got a puncher's chance, and I'll tell you what, they got a much better chance of winning the whole thing than Notre Dame does.
I love it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Sterling.
Yeah, they've got to survive the early potential onslaught from Oregon. That's a tough place to play. I've my son, I don't know if you guys know, Rusty knows this. He graduated from Oregon back in the spring, so I've seen a lot of Oregon football up close. They have some phenomenal athletes. Now their receiver room's a little beat up, which could help James Madison. Some of those guys that practiced this week, I don't know their status. Evan Stewart, who hasn't played all year, DeCorey Moore, who's been out like the last 3 or 4 games. He's a freshman, but super duper athlete. He's probably going to be a first round pick at some point when he comes out. If those guys don't see the field, it'll help those explosive big plays and then limit those a little bit. I do think the key for JMU in this is ball control. They've got to get some sustained drives. They've got to be able to take 4, 5, 6 minutes per drive off the clock, because that Oregon offense just gets on the field and they get 12 to 14 drives in the game. I mean, you're not going to stop them all the time. Mm-hmm. The Oregon tight end, you guys have probably seen him, Kenyon Sadiq. He is a freak of an athlete. He reminds me of Vernon Davis when he came out of Maryland, and with the combine numbers that Vernon Davis put up, and you look at him, you're like, okay, what happened to this guy? Who injected him with what? It's crazy to look at him. He's a different looking animal, but they can't be intimidated by that. Going out to Alton's a great place, Marvin. I'm so glad you're going, man. You're going to have a great time out there. Hope you enjoy it. It's a great, great environment to watch a football game. My heart tells me JMU, but my gut tells me Oregon probably is a slightly better team. I mean, they're a top 5 program, guys. I mean, if JMU can keep this thing close, Chesney's a phenomenal coach. They've got to be able to match him in special teams, and they've got to try and win that proverbial turnover battle. If they have 3 or 4 turnovers, Oregon doesn't have any. I mean, nobody's going to go out and beat them with losing the turnover battle 3-0. So I think it could be a game early into the fourth quarter. And, at that point, who knows what happens right there. Oregon, the one weakness my son tells me, and he's watched every single minute of every single game, they will make some mistakes at times. They'll commit some personal foul penalties that take a first down off the board. They'll take a touchdown off the board, things like that. So we've got to hope for maybe a little bit of that. And I think some good luck. Usually doesn't rain out there, but they are calling for some rain. So we'll see if the weather's a bit of a factor here.
Okay. But your pick is Oregon. Marvin.
Oregon in a close one. I'm thinking like 28 to 24, something like that.
Yep. You and Marvin said the same thing. And then Mitchell went Dukes. John, what was your actual prediction?
I'm in the same camp as Jason and Marvin. I mean, look, I think that JMU probably loses by a touchdown or kind of too late, but if they can keep it close, and but I do think, look, if you look at the Sun Belt Championship game, they had the receivers had the dropsies, right? The offense really sputtered for 3, maybe 3.5 quarters, and their defense was just lights out, and they can't play that way and beat Oregon. They can't. Their defense won't hold up that same way against Oregon. I think our defense can play with Oregon for sure, but if we leave them out there, on short fields and 3 and outs, it doesn't matter. So if the offense can even just sustain drives and catch the ball, like they just were uncharacteristically off, and I think they'll go as far as Barnett takes them. I think he has a chance to, if he plays a really good game, we don't turn the ball over. We're good in the kicking game. our defense will keep us in it. Like they got a puncher's chance and maybe a little bit better than that. But you can't expect. I mean, I think if you were gonna bet money, you're gonna take the points. And
Yeah.
it's 3
What is the
touchdowns,
spread?
right?
Does anybody know?
It's like 21 and a half or
Yeah.
something.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Woo.
Come on,
So
get on my app tonight. All right. All
I
right,
wouldn't
cool.
lay the points. I wouldn't lay the
Yeah.
points. I mean, they may cover. Oregon may cover, but I wouldn't lay the points if I were, I would take JMU in 21 and a half.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna just say it straight up, like I think this was the perfect, and I told a couple of you guys the perfect matchup for JMU. I think Oregon is still Pac-10 booty soft. Like they're in the Big Ten, but they don't have the horses. And most teams now don't have that depth on the offense and defensive lines because they're not like Alabama can't just stack a bunch of guys. Go, why am I sitting the bench here when I can go get some time somewhere else? So I don't think they have the depth that traditional powerhouse programs have. I still think this is only their second year in the Big Ten. They still in a Pac-10, Pac-12, a little soft type of football. And you all beat Washington State, 6-6 team in the only 2-team division Pac-12. But I think when you look at if you look at Oregon's schedule, yeah, okay, they've got one loss, and that was to JMU North, okay, to Indiana, right? But they beat a Montana State team, which is pretty good at 1AA, but they blew them out. Oklahoma State sucked this year, beat them 69-3. They beat Northwestern, didn't have a good year. Oregon State, they beat Penn State, but that's part of why James Franklin got fired. All right. Then you have they lost to Indiana, but then again, Big 12, Big 10 is not that tough to me. They beat Rutgers, Wisconsin is down. Iowa was supposed to be good, but they're not really that good this year. They blew out Minnesota. USC is way overrated, and then they beat a rival in Washington. If you just look at their games, I think there's definitely a path and a way for you to do it. I not only think you'll cover, I think you'll win the game by at least 6 points.
All right.
So I'm going JMU. And I just thought this was the best matchup. I also think this part of the bracket is the best way to get to the national championship game. Because I think either team who wins this game can beat Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech is good. Don't get me wrong. Their NIL money made them great. They got Texas oil money like SMU had last year. But that sets up, again, somebody that's going to have to play. And I think Indiana's going to beat the winner of Oklahoma, Alabama. I think that would set you all up to play Indiana.
Watch out, John Mitchell. It's coming, baby.
I told you. That's what the networks want.
That's what they want. Yeah. So for this game, I'm going JMU. But the last thing I want to do is get everybody. It can be your home team, but clearly 3 of you don't think they'll get past that. You don't think, but who do you think will win this year's national championship? Starting with you, Jason.
Oh boy. I either see a rematch of Ohio State, Indiana, or Georgia, Indiana. And I'm going to say it's going to be Georgia, Indiana, with Georgia coming out on top. Just a hunch.
Okay.
I'd love to see JMU versus Tulane. I mean, maybe would that work? Or are they cross bracketed? I didn't even look.
Yes. I think Tulane's going to beat Ole Miss, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of talent in Louisiana and New Orleans. It's a lot of talent there.
Yeah. I'm not sure Ohio State can beat Indiana for a say. It's so hard to beat Ohio State twice. I mean, you guys know how good they are.
Yeah.
So I'd be wary about that for Indiana. I'd love to see it. I'd love to. If JMU doesn't do this, obviously we're all pulling for Cignetti, I think, and taking that crew of JMU guys, former JMU guys, all the way. That Ohio State Georgia side. Woo! What 2 good teams those are, man.
And your pick was
I'm going to say Georgia.
Georgia. Yeah. Okay. All right. Marvin, overall national champion. You know college football.
I selfishly, if I'm going to root for the demise of the Dukes, then it got to be the U. So I do think like looking at it, I would love to see Georgia versus Miami in the national championship. Carson Beck getting a chance to go against a team that kind of said that they were good, and and do that. Um, I think the one thing the run game, pass rush that travels, and so you look at the teams that do an excellent job of rushing the passer and be able to run the football. And so, that's why I think JMU, that's why they have a fighting chance.
Okay.
Outside of probably the two DNs at Miami, I think Sahir West and the guy from Texas A&M are probably the four best pass rushers in college football in the playoff. And so, I think there's some elite pass rushers. So I guess my national champ, if I can't pick JMU, I'm going Miami.
Okay. Mitchell.
I gotta say that I do agree with Marvin. I think that a dark horse that people aren't realizing how talented they are is Miami.
Yep.
I do think Miami is going to shock a lot of people. I think they had their little doldrums, but they've got the talent. They've got running game. They've got defense that travels. They've got a quarterback that's been there. Um, my heart wants JMU to make it all the way to Indiana so we can get the JMU Bowl. I do believe Indiana will come out. I do believe Ohio State will come out. And I want to say, I've got to say, Ohio State is a B League NFL team.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Those wide receivers, Coach Signetti did a job and outcoached, and his team outplayed Ohio State. That's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
They'll be ready for a national championship game. They'll be ready for their bonus checks. So it's going to be Ohio State.
Okay. Stop.
Jeremiah Smith was a grown man when he was 7 years old, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, like, I mean, I watched him like when he was sophomore in high school, and I was like, there's a grown man playing
Yeah.
at Shaman.
Right. There's an
Yeah.
NFL wide receiver on the high school football field right now. Yeah.
Right. Stein.
Yeah. Well, by the way, Indiana D'd him up. I mean, he didn't, and
Yeah.
Pons, who was undersized, it was the JMU corner, and was probably going to be the first corner pick for one of them, played really well. But I agree. I think the best worst thing that happened to Indiana was beating Ohio State because I think Ohio State they're just, that's the kind of game that JMU has to play against Oregon.
Yes.
Right, like that's the game we need to play. I think if Indiana and Ohio State play 10 times, I think Ohio State wins 8 or 9 of them, and I don't think they're going to lose. I think the winner of I know the U's on the same side of the bracket, but I think the winner of Ohio State Georgia wins this whole thing. So I would lean Georgia in that instance, but I think they're the two teams that come out of that side, and although I don't know, Texas Tech's defense is legit.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe they can win a Ravens style, Super Bowl, so to speak, and just dominate people on defense. But the way Georgia just curb stomped Alabama and, they're playing the right way. I think them and Ohio State are the two best teams in the tournament.
Okay.
So I would go Georgia, but I think if the winner of Ohio State Georgia is going to win the whole thing.
All right. All right. Well, I'm gonna put you down for Georgia.
Put me down for Georgia.
Okay. And then my selection is going to be Ohio State. I just think they've got a lot of horses, but I think just like last year, and based on some of my experience, I say this all the time from my time coaching, and I've coached all type of sports, track, football, basketball, whatever. But football is the one I love the most and enjoy it the most. And even though it was youth or middle school football, like I've had 2 undefeated seasons and 1 championships. But I think the thing that for me is there is value in a loss. It's hard to coach teams and kids and players when all you do is win. So I think there was a value in JMU losing to Louisville. There's something they could find in that film and say, "This is what we got to do better." This is we're focused. We're on a mission. I think Ohio State's loss to Indiana in the Big Ten championship game is going to give them the motivation. And just like last year, like they lost to Michigan in the last game last year, and they were like, "Oh, They can figure some stuff out, get it turned on, and then just remind them, hey, you can be beat. So I think one of the worst things that might have happened was Indiana beating Ohio State, because I think they could meet again. And then the next time they meet, I think Ohio State gets the victory. But yeah, so I'm going to Ohio State. And this, guys, has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you all being here. I told you I was going to try to keep it to an hour. We went a little bit over, but the conversation was flowing, and you guys know your stuff. So this was great. Again, the show is the last word, like I always say. Anybody can give a first take or a fake take, but I want you to get the last word in. And we'll start with you, Jason Sterling. What is your last word on James Madison football?
Well, my last word was going to be, I don't know why we let a VCU guy into our JMU brotherhood, but that's okay. That's okay. I know you want to hang out with the cool guys, Rusty, so we get it. Totally get it. College athletics is changing very fast, guys. It's right in front of us. We know that, particularly college football. What we have today is vastly different than what we had 5 years ago. What we're going to have 5 years from now is vastly different, going to be vastly different than what we had today. NIL contracts, the transfer portal, coaches making $13 to $14 million a year. Think about that. So my last word is this. You pay some of the coach if he's not having a great record, $50, $60 million as a buyout. It's a lot of money. I'm telling all the athletic directors out there, I'll do the job for half the price. So if there's any athletic directors watching this, I'll take a head coaching job for $7 or $8 million. That give them a home team discount and sign me up. So it's a good time of year. I'm looking forward to these playoffs, Rusty. For sure.
Yep. Marvin, your last word.
Oh man, it's as a JMU guy, it's been like to see where I remember. I tell people all the time we were playing Northeastern, the last game of my redshirt season, and there might have been like 28 people in the stands in Bridgeforth Stadium. And I'm like, and they were screaming, "Fire Mickey." And like you could hear it because there's only 28 people in the stands. And I remember, we win the championship in '04. And then I remember we're getting ready to play Lock Haven to open the season in '05. And it's an hour before game time and the stadium's packed. And those moments were like, oh man, like see how far we've come. Like in just in those 2 years, from November of 2003 to September of 2005, like that change. And now we're looking at it in December of 2025. We're going out to Alton Stadium to play the team that has 6,000 uniforms in a game that is meaningful. And it's like for me. I'm not a proud father because the ones on the call came before me, but I take pride in being a proud uncle of what JMU has become, and like I said before, I don't think this is the end of our story. It's only the beginning. So excited to see where this goes next.
Cool. Thank you, Marvin. Stein. Crabber.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would just say that, I agree with Jason that the world has changed. I think there's going to be a time when, there are only 32 NFL teams, and I think that there'll be a phase of billionaires owning college franchises. I think that's where it's going. But, we can all lament and maybe mourn some of that and maybe celebrate some of that about what college football is becoming and the good and bad. But I just look at it and say that, in the end, that's the noise. The signal is, there's guys in a locker room on every team that are, that have relationships, and the friendships that you build and the things you learn through football, those don't change. So, even though you have maybe guys getting paid and you have, those kind of dynamics that we didn't have when we played, I just think it's all about, what you learn about yourself. And I hope that doesn't get lost, people getting buried on the depth and then transferring because, I might not play for another year or two or something. But I think in the end, football teaches you a lot about yourself. And I don't think that will go away. And that's what I celebrate. And I also, the one last thing I'll say is, 12 hours ago, I didn't know I was going to be doing this. and I'm really glad that I did. So it was nice to get the chance to talk to all of you guys, and I appreciate you, and thanks to Rusty for kind of and John for kind of making this happen.
Yeah, Mitchell.
Mine's gonna be real simple. Go Dukes.
Go Dukes. Go Dukes. That's it. Hey, look. So I'm just going to close real just very, very quickly. I didn't go to JMU, but again, it came down to a choice. But I told you all that story before about me going to VCU or JMU. So I chose VCU, but I've always been a big supporter of JMU. I remember the Lefty Driesell days. When Lefty got there, it was crazy. Like I came from VCU just to go to some JMU games, and but it's been a program that I have been proud to see. Now, my favorite program is Virginia Tech, and that's because my brother played there. But James Madison is number 2 for me, and I just want to say Duke's pride. Like, I hope you guys understand. Now, I know you have a certain level of pride, and you're proud of your program because you went there. But I think this is something the whole Commonwealth can get around, and we should all be put aside. I also went to grad school at UVA. We can put away our different colors for this weekend at least, and let's all show some pride in the state we're all from. It's a great state of Virginia. James Madison is representing us, and they're not just some gimme team. Like, they earned the right to be here. They deserve to be here. I think they are as good a chance as anybody, and so I'm just going to say, go Dukes. I'm because I'm proud, and I am an honorary JMU Duke for this weekend, and so I appreciate you all. This has been a great show. This has been a blessing to do this. Now, I do have a challenge for you. I did a show on Virginia Tech and hiring of James Franklin about a month ago, and that got me 1,200 views. Let's see if Duke Nation is going to show up, because if this show don't get but like 200 views, that tells me a little something about what I just said. That Duke pride. I hope y'all can get on the social media, make some calls, make your kids dial up, watch the show. And the longer you watch it, the more credit we get for it. But yeah, let's see how y'all do. Maybe Virginia Tech, not even y'all won't even be 2 anymore. So let's see if Duke Nation can get me over 1,200 views on this show. But look, this has truly been a blessing. So for my co-host Jason Sterling, for Marvin Brown, Duke great, John, Duke and Crabber graduates, thank you all so much for being on the show. And like I said, anybody can give a fake and first take, but these guys just blessed us with the last word. Go Dukes.
Hey. That last word we don't play. DMV heat coming straight your way. No visit to the 757, we ride. Rusty Byrd got the bullpen live on. Let run DMC mic hot, game tight. Rusty B and the crew bring the real to the mic. From the field to the core, from the fate to the fun. We talk ball, talk life, yeah, all in one.